Welcome back to Mostly Growth, the #1 podcast in product monetization. And CJ, I heard you had a bit of an eventful weekend.
So we went to the Hamptons for the first time, which is also the douchiest thing you could say on a podcast. We loaded up the car to go to the beach for the first day. It's like 10 a.m. We got all 3 kids in there. It's a really difficult road. It's called a carriage lane. So they have cars going left and right on both sides on the part that you're entering the street. But then they have like a town green in the middle, and then they have the same thing. So these 4 lanes, you have to cross it. But they also have lanes where people can turn left. And so there was a car blocking our view when we turned left. And it was like a total low speed accident. But we drove right into the teeth of a box truck.
With 3 kids in the car?
Yeah, everybody was in the car. It happened in such slow motion that I think we were only going 10 miles per hour. They were probably going 15. And so everyone was fine, but the car just completely crumpled. The pictures look way gnarlier than it actually was. So now we're like on the side of the road. Like, okay, what do? We were going to go to the beach. I just paid for this Airbnb that was clearly overpriced. This is our first day. The kids are like freaking out because they have to get out of the car. The police show up. So we sorted it all out. The police are so nice. They took our car seats because we have 3 car seats and all these beach chairs. And they're like, oh, we'll drive it back to the rental property for you. So they put it in the cop car and drove it back. We walked the mile back in the stroller, got them to stop crying. But then like I instantly realized like, oh shit, like I got to buy another car now. Like this car isn't going to work. And like, we didn't have the luxury of like waiting around for the insurance stuff to all come in because it's going to take forever. I got to start negotiating for a car. So within an hour, I'm online. My wife likes the Ford Expedition. I call up 2 dealerships. I go, here's the deal. I'm going to wire you money for a car. I want it on Monday. What you're going to text me back is how much it would be to lease with no money down, how much it would be to lease with $5,000 down, the discount rate and the residual value, and then you're going to give me the cash price out the door. I will get back to you in the next 10 minutes. I'm not going to come into your dealership. I'm not going to sign anything at your dealership, and I want it delivered to my house.
It almost sounds like you're interacting with the car dealer the way you'd interact with ChatGPT.
One guy was like willing to play ball. I took all the data he gave me, Kyle. I put it into ChatGPT. I said, which of these 3 deals is the better deal?
So you got 3 deals back.
I knew what car it was, and the way that the online is so transparent now with buying cars, there's not actually a lot of margin if it's a new car. There's more margin than negotiate if it's a used car. This is going to be a new car. And so I'm like, you know what? Maybe I could save like $1,500 or something, but I need a car on Monday. So he gave me all that data, Kyle. I copied and pasted from the text into ChatGPT. They think the car in 3 years, if you lease it, is only going to be worth $30,000. There's no way that you can only sell this car for $30,000 if you put 10,000, 12,000 miles on it per year. I would just buy it outright. So I ended up buying it outright. The guy brought it to our house 10 a.m. on Monday, signed a paper in the driveway, and we were done within 10 minutes.
Wow. So you have a new car.
I have a new car. Yeah. And hopefully I get a couple bucks back on the insurance whenever that's done.
And you did that through a dealership, not like a Carvana or one of these like next gen places?
I did it through a dealership.
What's the color of the car?
Metallic blue.
I didn't see you as a metallic blue kind of guy. What's your #1 tip for negotiating a car purchase for anyone listening?
Make it readily apparent that you're either going to transact or you're not going to transact within a short window of time. You want the information as fast as possible to make a decision and have them lay out the different levers. Like some people go in maybe like, I know I want to lease. I didn't know that. The other thing I would tell them is you don't have to go into the dealership anymore. So know if you're willing to buy a car, they will actually like send someone to deliver it for you. And it's kind of all just like baked into, I think, the price of service these days. There may not be as much wiggle room on the price, but I looked at this as a non-pricing concession. And that's something I think we talk about on the podcast all the time. Like talk about like payment terms. You could talk about like what court you would be in, like Delaware versus Florida if there's a dispute. So I very much went into this like, listen, I'm not going to get much wiggle room on the price. What I do want is the optionality of the different ways I can pay. And I want the non-pricing concession to be to make my life easier.
When you want the buy it now option, like not waiting a couple weeks for something to get shipped from another dealership, like what is in stock now that you can commit to delivering on a Monday?
Exactly.
Well, I will be in the market soon for a new car. I'm not quite like a 3-row SUV person. Maybe not yet. I'm thinking more of a Rivian. We'll see.
I don't think they negotiated on price at all. So good luck with that.
From Mostly Media, it's Mostly Growth. Go-to-market strategist Kyle Poyer and CFO CJ Gustafson break down how modern companies make money, covering pricing, monetization, and benchmarks in ways that make you better at your job. tactics and playbooks for finance, product, and sales operators looking to be the CEO of their role. This is Mostly Growth.
We have the negotiator in chief with us, CJ, negotiating deals left, right, and center. We have the trickiest negotiation problem ever, and we have you to solve it. Are you prepared?
I'm ready to negotiate some damn tokens here.
The whole point of today's episode is to talk about token costs. They're getting out of control. We're in the great token maxing era, and I think we're past that, or we're quickly moving past that. People are realizing they've blown through their AI budgets already, and we're not even done with the first half of 2026. What realistically can you do to manage your token costs going forward without losing the benefits of AI?
And I want to make a disclaimer up front, if that's okay, Kyle.
Disclaim away.
This is not investment advice, but this is 100% our fault. So I knew we were doing this episode, and I texted my friend who's a CFO, and I'm like, hey, we're going to be talking about reducing token costs. He's like, I want you to know that this whole thing that we're dealing with is because all our investors panicked and said, go out and try stuff with AI. And if you're not using it, you're going to be behind. And we created this conundrum where we just had people left, right, and center burning through tokens to do stuff. It's like we're trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube and change behavior, and also change the ROI incentives behind it.
There was a period in 2020, right when COVID hit, when a bunch of investors sent like black swan memos to their portfolio, like, be prepared for a recession, like, you've got to hunker down, like, collect payments now, get profitable. And then all of a sudden there was like a SaaS takeoff where everyone needed software because they were stuck at home. And it was like the investors had basically told their entire portfolio companies to do the opposite. It's just funny how investors drive what feels like whiplash in the market.
Total whiplash. Like, lay off 30 to 50% of your companies, followed by the largest software boom in history.
It's like, actually, now lay off Claude. You've been interviewing CFOs on Run the Numbers. What have you been hearing in terms of spending on AI? Like, how far underwater are companies, are CFOs from what they budgeted?
Take it with a grain of salt, because some of this could be law of small numbers. But like that same CFO I was just referencing, he told me their Claude costs jumped 45% month over month.
If you look at like the Anthropic revenue growth, I mean, they're growing at record rates, even at this scale. In some ways, it kind of makes sense.
I texted another finance leader, and he said, you know, we're around 300 million in revenue. We're on pace this year to spend 4 million on tokens. It's like 1.3% of revenue today, just on tokens.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I was trying to make sense of that. Like, is that a lot? I mean, if we spend 20% on cloud costs, maybe it's actually not as much as I thought, but it's all being subsidized, right? So we're basically getting these for 1/3 of the price. If they weren't subsidized, that would be like 12 million a year on tokens.
I'm talking about tokens for internal use. So for your engineering team, support team, marketing team, and so on. Marty, the CEO of Pylon, posted that they were targeting spending, maybe 400K in Anthropic seats for this year. They have about 150 people or something in the organization. And they're doing the math and realizing they're actually going to spend about $1.4 million in the next year, which is just like an insanely high amount of money to spend. And the reason is that Anthropic seats come with subsidized usage built in. But once you go on their enterprise plan and cross 150 seats, apparently they stop subsidizing that usage. And so that explains a huge amount of the spike. Engineering spends about $3,000 a person per year, which actually to me is like, that feels kind of reasonable given the productivity gains. But support was their next highest spending group. So their support team is spending over $1,000 each.
But how many support people did they fire to do that?
I don't know, but that's a lot of money in AI tokens for customer support.
Did he have finance on the list?
Did not list finance as one of the big spenders. They're an $8 a month.
Did it say that? $8?
Literally $8 a month for the average person. Finance is, if you look on this list, the smallest group.
That's too low, guys. Help us out here.
Either way, these token costs are getting absolutely real, and they're coming from a lot of different teams. So engineering is driving a lot of it.
Hey, thanks for listening. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
When I went all in on my newsletter, Growth Unhinged, last year, I quickly decided it was time to make the switch to beehiiv. I chose beehiiv because they're serious about powering the internet's best newsletters. beehiiv's all-in-one platform brings together newsletters, websites, and every tool you need to grow and earn. and they keep making it better. You can now launch, host, and monetize your podcast entirely on beehiiv. You can host webinars on beehiiv, and you can access beehiiv through the new MCP. I just use beehiiv's MCP in Claude Cowork to audit my site, prioritize SEO fixes, and analyze subscriber trends. It's my newest obsession. If you care about owning your audience, beehiiv is a no-brainer. Try beehiiv for free by going to beehiiv.com. That's beehiiv.com. Use Kyle30 for 30% off your first 3 months.
Ali and the team at Tabs are building something that directly addresses one of the biggest headaches I see finance teams deal with today. Pulling data from your ERP, your CRM, your FP&A tools, and your usage systems and actually making it all work together. If you're running usage-based pricing or complex contracts, you already know how this usually plays out. Contracts live in one system, usage data lives somewhere else, billing happens in another tool. RevRec gets layered on top at month end, and finance ends up just reconciling everything by hand to close the books. This is exactly the problem Tabs was built to solve. Tabs is an AI-native revenue platform built for controllers and CFOs. It brings together data from your ERP, CRM, and real product usage into a single system of record. From there, it automates billing, collections, and revenue recognition without finance having to duct tape workflows together every month. If usage-based revenue is core to your business, this is the future of how billing and RevRec get done. Go check them out at tabs.com/run. That's tabs.com/run.
When I looked to set up my first CRM at Growth Unhinged, I knew I wanted something that was actually AI first. The world has evolved. Most CRMs are still stuck in the 90s. I found Lightfield, the CRM that remembers everything and does the work for you. It joins all my sales calls, reads my emails, and has the full context on every account. At this point, Lightfield knows my deals better than I do. I haven't had to set up a single CRM dashboard. Instead, I simply ask Lightfield questions like, which deals in my pipeline are most likely to close, or who do I need to follow up with today? It even automatically prepares me for meetings with a personalized daily briefing, and setup was quick and surprisingly painless. Lightfield is my sales coach, RevOps analyst, therapist, EA, all in one. See Lightfield for yourself with a 14-day free trial. Connecting data from your inbox takes just 5 minutes, and you can migrate in under an hour. Go to lightfield.app, that's lightfield.app, and use code MOSTLYGROWTH to get 3 months free. I figured we could go back and forth and share some ideas of, if you were in Marty's shoes or really anyone thinking about how to manage AI costs, like what would be the best piece of advice you have?
First thing would be to not just use Anthropic, right? Because it sounds like by him leaning in all the way, they got smacked and they triggered something to bring him to the next plan. Also, it sounded like he was budgeting based on seats, Kyle, if I got it right, but a lot of the cost is coming from usage. So it's a bit of a bait and switch.
On the smaller tiers, like they bundle the usage in with the seats. I think just for the larger tiers, it's like you're paying standard API rates. You're not getting that subsidization like to the same extent. There's probably some extra usage bill in either case. Yes, you can have company context that is shared across teams, and like there's probably a benefit to having all your teams on one provider, but like it feels like it's doable to split and say, hey, actually marketing, finance, support, we're going to go to OpenAI. Engineering, we can stay on Anthropic, or like, split the purchase into two. That way they keep the subsidized seats as much as they can. I think they can also play the two vendors against each other. Like if you have a credible Anthropic bill, I think OpenAI is going to be a lot more willing to play ball from a negotiation standpoint. It's probably good to have both of them at the same time. Claude Code has been ahead of OpenAI on coding for a while, but there's been a lot more buzz about codecs and higher limits and just better performance than people expected. So it does feel like the pendulum is shifting back a little bit towards OpenAI.
You know how every time you open something like a link, it tries to decide if it's going to use like Google Chrome or something else. Inevitably, Explorer pops up and it's like, do you want to make this your default browser?
The Microsoft Edge, I hate that so much.
I've been using ChatGPT lately and I just am bombarded with the try codecs pop-ups. It's kind of funny because like I've never once asked it for anything to code. It also has the context on me as a finance person. So I just find it interesting, Kyle, that it keeps asking me to try codecs, but everything I've ever worked on with it would say that I'm not a technical person.
You're like, this doesn't seem like the smartest AI out there. OpenAI increasingly offers me like trials, like, oh, you can get a 30-day free trial of Pro or of Codex or of like, different products. I had never gotten a free trial for like years of using these products until recently. I don't know if it's because they know that I pay for Anthropic now and like maybe I stopped using ChatGPT as much as I used to and they're trying to like win me back, or it's just a sort of a desperate ploy to grow their user base ahead of an IPO. But it feels like this sort of price war environment is heating up.
Who's to say you can't split which teams use which providers? And it's probably good to keep a couple irons in the fire depending on who ramps their roadmap faster so you can lean in.
So that's number one. Number two, I was actually going to say like negotiate against Anthropic and probably try to negotiate with both providers at the same time. Like how much room do you think there is to negotiate with Anthropic? If you're negotiating with them, kind of like you did with the car dealership, what would be your chips? What would you do?
If it's mostly media calling up and like, hey, so we have 4 seats and we're not, hello?
I don't think you'd get your phone call and said, no, but thinking like you're spending over $1 million here.
I think that you could lock in a pretty awesome deal right now, especially if they have enterprise reps who are looking to lock in commitments. Because you also have to remember they're trying to plan on the compute side for how much they'll need. I know they are extremely constrained by that right now, and they'll take whatever they can get. But I mean, from a CFO's perspective, if you can say, we have this commitment, we think people are going to use it to this amount, they've already signed on the line, then I think that's better for both sides. And I'd want to lock in the subsidies. You remember how we were just saying that once you go past a certain point, like it gets more expensive? I know the cost of compute is going down with Moore's Law, but I don't know if the cost per token is necessarily going to go down for the frontier models as fast as some of these companies will want them to.
Yeah, so you would basically try to use the commitment level as that main negotiating lever.
That's what I would do. And like we said before, if you're using both providers and you can send them a screenshot to say this is legit, we're using both, play them against each other. It's a multi-horse race.
So one thing that did stand out to me is there's been more and more headlines like this. This was in the Wall Street Journal. OpenAI considers drastic price cuts, anticipating war for users with Anthropic. The company might lower prices for tokens, the central unit for gauging AI costs. The discussions are still in flux. What's interesting about this is, I mean, it speaks to something that we kind of know, like there is a lot of competition. This is a knife fight right now between these two, especially as they want to show user growth going into IPOs. I actually don't want headlines like this to leak if I'm either vendor, because just the sense that OpenAI is considering price cuts, this immediately gives you negotiating leverage, because like why commit now if you think that there's about to be big price cuts in the future? And so I probably use this as a way to say, hey, actually, I'm really hesitant to lock in now because I think I could get a better deal with OpenAI if I wait a month. And if you say that to Anthropic, they might be a little bit willing to play ball.
I think it's the best time to be negotiating in general as a CFO for software or tokens. Because if you go to your software provider, you say, hey, I'm not going to take a price increase this year because I'm thinking about just building this out with an LLM. Even if you're not, just like make them call bullshit on it. For the LLMs, you can be like, hey, I heard there's a price cut coming. I'm not willing to get too far over my skis and commit just yet. I think just acting like you have all these options, which technically you do, can really drive down the cost of both the software you have upon renewal and for the tokens that would replace it.
Those two feel like no-brainer moves. What would be your third action that you take?
I would probably look into where credits are being used or unused at the team level. So similar to how that gentleman broke out in the LinkedIn post, the usage by department, I would definitely start to have rules of thumb of what I would expect on a per employee and per department basis.
What I'd be curious about is the department level, the user level, and then ideally like the task or the use case level. I think a lot of people use AI internally without even realizing how much compute they're consuming. And so you could end up with the problem of an intern that's like consumed a crazy amount and they just like didn't realize it. Getting that visibility and then sharing that internally and doing it not for the purposes of saying we're token maxing and whoever's at the highest on the leaderboard is great, but more about like, hey, look, there are real costs here. Here's how much you're consuming. Like just making that visible, I think is useful. And then understanding engineering using a lot of this, that's great. But like, are the most productive engineers the ones that are using the most tokens? If so, like, that's fine. Like, that's what you'd expect. If like least productive engineers are using a lot of tokens, that's probably a problem. It's same across other teams. And that's where I think you can't just stop at the department level. You've got to go down to the user.
The way that I would budget traditionally for benefits load, basically everything else that's outside of the employee's base compensation, is come up with a percentage uplift based on where they live. So I know in the US, and this is like rule of thumb, between 20 and 23% uplift if you include like 401k, healthcare, dental, vision, any sort of payroll taxes associated with it. And so like if you made 100,000 out of budget for like 120, 123, 4, 5,000, I would start to come up with percentage uplift assumptions for each department. So engineering, maybe that's a 30% uplift, maybe on the high side, I don't know. But for the rest of the departments, it could be 10%, 15%, 20%. And then just start to measure if your assumptions are right quarter by quarter. But I think you got to put a line in the sand and just have something to measure against. And to me, we're moving into an era where it's a percentage of the employee's OTE, similar to how it would differ by country. So like in Switzerland, it's going to be a 50% uplift because everything's like state run. They have excellent benefits. Your children can go to school for free. The UK, it's like 35%. Canada is like 15%. It's going to be different by department.
I take a different view. So you're treating it almost like as a benefit that's accrued at the employee level, and you can budget for it that way. Why not go to like zero-based budgeting and have teams or managers kind of just be explicit about the trade-offs? Because there are some teams that might explicitly say, hey, we actually want to be very heavy adopters of AI. We found these use cases. These are really valuable. And we want to spend a lot more money on AI, but that's like decoupled from the headcount load. You wouldn't allocate a spend on demand gen based on how many marketing team members you have. You're not like, we've got 10 marketers, so like each of you can spend 20% of your salary on advertising. Like we don't do that, right? We do it more on an ROI basis, and we have like an envelope for a marketing budget, and some of that's program, some of that's headcount, and we're kind of constantly figuring out the best bang for your buck in terms of that mix of the two. And that's where I think this AI spend needs to go.
Well, this is where you get into giving them a budget envelope. And so what that means is, let's say there's $10 million for the department to spend. You can say, I don't truly care about the mix between people and software / tokens / anything else, but it needs to stay under 10 million. Now, there may be a max headcount in there too. And also just because of like how the org works, we don't want to add 1,000 people at like $100 each. Not that you could find that, but you just want to put a max guardrail on that. I totally see what you mean there, because traditionally marketing spend, it's somewhere between 60% people, 40% programs, and then you can dish out those programs within that. And so maybe you look at it like a portfolio or a budget envelope and you split it up that way.
The only thing that could backfire with that model is like the ability to experiment. So if you set these budget envelopes, we're much more advanced with AI than we used to be, but there's a lot of it that's like, hey, I don't actually know if AI is going to be able to work well for this use case, or like how many tokens something's going to cost. I got to do some tinkering to figure it out. And you don't necessarily want to shut down experimentation. And so ideally there's like a budget carved out for experimentation purposes that's kind of like a part of the overall budget, but that like explicitly gives teams some level of discretion to try things out.
And I would budget for that part at the corporate level, and based on certain ROI triggers, I would dish that out as people reach them. Be like, marketing's crushing it. They have some great ideas. Here's 5% of that $10 million slush fund we had.
Yeah, I like that. I like that move. What's the next idea?
Defaulting people in teams to certain models. I was texting with my friend who's at a VC firm, and he said, my department defaults to a lower level automatically. IT set the permissions that way than another part of the org. I'm like, oh man, you got like the snickle frits. They did you dirty there.
Yeah, that almost sounds like offensive. It's like you get a lower lunch budget. Like you can go to McDonald's, everyone else is going to go to Sweetgreen. Did you ever get a hold of Fable / Mythos before it closed?
No, it won't let me click on it.
Yeah, I wasn't able to try it either. Within Claude, I actually default to Sonnet instead of Opus. I find like the outputs are still pretty solid. It feels like it consumes fewer tokens. I hit my limits way slower than Opus. And yeah, sure, if I had something that was totally mission critical, I could switch back. But once I set that default, I just keep that default.
The part that I struggle with some of these things is like me as the finance person, I can't control them. I can control the budgeting part, but like I have no idea how to set up the permissions or how to like route certain tasks to certain models, but like I know it's the right thing to do.
I've seen people talk about like using harnesses or similar products to like auto route requests as like a layer of extraction between the user and the model itself. It feels like that's kind of an emerging product category or tech category. I haven't tried any of those personally and don't know enough about like the level of maturity.
I still think it should be on the list. Now, smarter people than us will figure out how to actually administer this. But I think, like you said, using harnesses and similar products to route requests to cheaper models under the hood. And what I'm hearing is there's an entire cottage industry that's already sprung up. So similar to how you would look at your cloud load and push that to different places, whether that be GCP or AWS, if you're multi-cloud, there are brokers, if you will, who are helping you divvy up the workload between tokens.
I mean, it makes total sense that we'd go in that direction, especially as folks look at like local models, open source models, older versions of proprietary models, and then the most advanced models. Like the price per token can vary like an extreme level. And so if we're looking at the amount of spending that people have, like it's pretty inevitable that we'll want to get a lot smarter about how we're using that spend.
I have a counterintuitive one here, Kyle. Celebrating when people don't use AI for things that don't need AI.
Can you give me an example?
Say you are a simple subscription business and you do rev rec in a spreadsheet and you're under $20 million in revenue. You could go out and buy a great tool. Maybe you actually go out and buy Tabs, like the sponsor of this podcast. But at the same time, if you're under a certain threshold, why would you want to chew up tokens on something that you're already doing correctly and it takes somebody 10 minutes at the end of each month? I think there are so many things we do today where we've been so AI pilled that we run at it with like to everything a hammer, it looks like a nail. And you should actually be like, you did the smart thing here for the company by doing something in a deterministic way.
Yeah, and I was talking to a publicly traded software company about their go-to-market AI motion. And I mean, they have a huge go-to-market AI motion, but they started with this idea of everything being agentic. And then they've moved to a mix of like deterministic and non-deterministic. And part of it's like you actually have consistency. Like if the process is like, if A, then B, it does that every single time. It does it at scale. It does it like affordably at a much lower price per action. And so, like where possible, you actually probably want to make as much deterministic as you can. And it feels like we kind of just assumed to like default to AI for a bunch of stuff. And we now need to find the right balance. So it's like if you can use Zapier or an N8N or another automation tool for something, like why pull in AI for that use case?
I was talking to Ryan Racone, the CFO of Zapier. Zapier makes you happier. He was saying that 100% of their month-end close runs on Zaps. Not all of them are AI Zaps, though, and that's okay. He's like, that wasn't broken before. Yes, we want to use as much AI as we can to solve stuff that was in the messy middle and stuff that like you have to pause and have somebody configure something or jump in and then toss it to another Zap. But he's like, it's not like we're just replacing the ones that worked already.
Yeah, I feel like we've like over course corrected and now it's like finding that right balance between the two. We're token maxing and then now we're being much more cautious about token spend, or like we will be in the future. But I think what's like missed in all of this is quantifying the AI wins before they get scaled into production and just like doing things that we used to do. Whenever we were buying software in the old days, we would try to make a business case, maybe partner with the vendor on a business case and like try to quantify, is it worth the time, effort, money, change management to go buy this thing? And we'd have to like get approval for that. Feels like with AI, we just started using it and like all the spend was approved and we were told if we weren't using it, we were going to be in trouble or maybe laid off. And I think we got to like be way better at quantifying the specific use cases and the ROI of those things. And I would argue a lot of the use cases for AI are just things teams should not have been doing at all. It's not like you're trading off like automation, AI, or humans for a lot of things. It's like, no, there's just things that you don't need to do as a business that you could have more leadership oversight on saying, this is not a high value priority for the business.
Yeah, and this is one of the last points that we were discussing. At what point does it become beholden on the vendor to have some sort of measurement as to what the tokens are going to? And I think as buyers, we have to say, you have to show me the ROI within the product of why I'm spending on this in the first place. So ideally, some of this, I guess, to close the loop, solves itself because it gets built into the product and it's less of a blind spot.
We saw that with cloud, right?
Yeah, we did.
Where in the early days of AWS, like it was cheap, it was way better than what came before cloud computing. And then all of a sudden people realized their like AWS bills were through the roof. Tools like Cloud Health, or I think there are a bunch of this like cottage industry of cloud cost management vendors that would give you visibility into your cloud usage and help you optimize your spend there. And then AWS just kind of said, okay, we should have this in our own product because our customers are going to expect this. That's how the story needs to play out in the end. I just don't know how far away we are from getting there.
Any we missed?
Well, there's one other I wanted to get your take on. Like when we're talking about the amount of spend on AI, like that we are, and just how much people are blowing through their budget too. And then also the complexity of some of these things around measuring visibility, allocating AI usage at the team level, building routing capabilities to have the right AI model for the right use case. Like, should teams just have like a VP of AI or a chief AI officer who owns these budgets and these results? Like, is that where we need to head, or is that overkill?
Probably, but I also think this person is going to be incentivized to spend more on AI and find more AI use cases. So I don't think this is the person who's going to decrease the budget.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that line? Like, it's impossible to convince a man against like what he's like paid to do or something like that. Like on which his job depends. I'm totally butchering the line, but this person's job depends on AI. I don't think they're going to be the person who's like, nah, don't use AI for that.
All right, so you're advocating for someone in finance to be involved. Per usual, CJ.
That's what it always comes back to.
Mostly Growth is a Mostly Media production. Executive produced by Ben Hillman. That's me. Additional production by Steve Sarasoli. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of CJ, Kyle, and Ben. Just some guys who love talking growth. Mostly. If you like this podcast, hit subscribe and give us 5 stars. It'll only take like 2 seconds and our algorithm overlords love it. Drink water, call your mom, and have a great day.